Okay. Hello. Hello, everybody. Whoever, wherever, whenever you are, wherever you're here, whatever you're doing, welcome. Thank you for coming. Denise Matto here. And this is just a little bit, I guess it's a bit of a rant about just, you know, neighborhood Bolshevik busybodies and YouTube busybody idiots. Um, First, YouTube, okay, since that's what most people who are in YouTube are interested in. Somebody emailed me, and no, this isn't someone I'm ranting about because it was somebody who, that felt that I should know that a certain party, who's a schizophrenic man who's totally nuts, um, is talking about me in one of his videos, claiming some nasty stuff about me. I wasn't surprised to get this email because I know I just touched a nerve with the Discordians and this guy the schizophrenic nutcase is a satanic Discordian. He's written a book, True Confession of Crimes He Actually Did Commit as a juvenile teenager participating in sexual abuse of small children. I won't go into details because I don't, I'm not here to produce that kind of garbage. Anyway, this guy periodically attacks me because of my statements about my daughter having been killed by a criminal gang in Massachusetts, which is what happened. It was officially declared a suicide by the University of Massachusetts. State police know that the university detective lied to them. Factual, hard evidence lies, not just a matter of opinion kind of lie. And the whole thing has been set. It's not a closed case. I mean, the university thinks it's a closed case. As far as they're concerned, it's closed because they said it's a suicide and they're not getting openly challenged. State police are not in a position to, a state trooper, which is who informed me about the lies that were told to the state police. I knew I had been lied to by that same detective, but private citizens get lied to by police all the time. What can you do about it? But this state trooper was kind of ticked off when he discovered that they had been lied to as well. And he told me about it. And I did get the case reopened. It's just quietly sitting there somewhere. That's been going on for years. And anyone who's watching what's going on with the Epstein files and all the other stuff going back to the Clintons, which involves this gang in Massachusetts because it is, in fact, the Democrat criminal gang. And right now, Trump's people are threatening to invade Boston with ICE to get rid of the illegal cover. See, this is the thing. Trump's apparent war on the illegals, that's just one layer of pulling down this criminal mafia gang that has had the entire United States in a chokehold for 30 years, at least 30 years. So, anyway, neither here nor there. Um, YouTube. So I get this email saying, Denise, about so many minutes in, this guy is saying this and that about you. And did you know he's a pedophile? It's like, yeah, I knew that. Now, I had had friendly contact with this guy because, number one, he has written and published and does sell a book on satanic ritual abuse of children, in which he claims to be giving the true confession of his own participation. And other people who have been exposing him have produced the documentation, the court documentation that supports his confession as being real, because he tried to claim at one point that, well, he had stupidly followed Neil Brick's advice. Neil Brick is a cult leader in Massachusetts, based in Chicopee, Massachusetts. Last time I met, he might be up in somewhere else in the central western Massachusetts area, but he had an office in Chicopee. He runs an organization of targeted individuals, microwaves in the head and all that crap. MK Ultra, all the Terry Joyce crap. I mean, it's that same circuit of grifters who pretend to be fighting satanic abuse, but yet they are in fact selling child porn, trafficking children. They are selling data on the victims of these crimes. I've been a very strong activist against this. There are people in the TLC that like to go on about, you're supposed to show if you're bearing fruit, the whole Protestant crap. I don't have to show anything. People who need to know. I've been doing my bit and will continue to do my bit in this fight. So anyway, I get this email saying, he's saying stuff about you. And did you? I said, yeah, I know. I said, he's just nuts. I'll look at it. If I have to rebut it, I will. So here I am. The guy claims um, that I've been working with the porn actress, Terry Joyce, who she exploits true crime victim families and she mixes them up with conspiracy theory crap. And she does pornographic comedy and she uses all her interactions with people for her comedy. I mean, that's kind of sick, kind of California stuff you see all the time. And she had exploited me because she had contacted me claiming to be a legitimate digital journalist doing true crime, interested in my daughter's case. And she was particularly interested in what I was saying about these people posing as vigilantes. They pose as if they're fighting pedophiles and satanic ritual abuse, but in fact, they're engaging in it. So she claims that and she gets me to go on an interview. And halfway through the interview, she ambushes me with one of the actual traffickers. And it turns out the whole thing was a setup. Very typical YouTube troll crap. And I call it an extortion ring because at the point where you discover that you made a mistake, you back away, that's when they say, well, if you don't go with the program, we're coming after your channel. And they do. It's not hard to bribe some YouTube staffers to take a channel down. And that's one of the things they do. So I don't care. It's happened before, it'll probably happen again. So this guy is claiming that I am working with Terry Joyce and he knew it when that I was working with her when he was selling his book. And I had contacted him, which the part about I had contacted him is true. But I had contacted him about a book sale meeting at which a friend of mine had also attended. I thought he had also attended the same meeting. And it was back in the very early, I mean, my friend died in 2000, so it was actually in the late 1990s I was looking at. And Schurter responded, the guy, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to name him, but well, I'm not going to send you to his channel. You can find it if you want. The idiot responded that, in fact, he was not in the same timeline. He wasn't speaking in the conferences with this group until 2012. Now, at the time that my friend went into it, my friend was a state police captain, and he was investigating the very same cult that eventually in 2010 killed my daughter. But in the late 1990s, he was investigating. He was investigating a member of my family, one of whom, by the way, was in the news in 2024 for attacking a conservative school committee woman and forcing her to resign. And that was the attacker, not the conservative, but the DEI woke attacker was my niece, one of my nieces, who is a treasurer for a nonprofit money laundering system up in Massachusetts. And she's a lawyer. So that's what we're talking about. So I had noticed David Schurter's book being advertised. I had read his blog. I had noticed that he claimed that he said he was selling books at the same conference that I believe had something to do with Captain Thomas White's death in 2000. And I questioned Schurter about it. I don't care that the guy's an absolute piece of junk, pedophile, criminal, belongs for the rest of his life behind bars. And he's only out because we have such a corrupt society protecting him. I made a respectful, congenial effort to speak to him because I wanted some timeline database to be able to say, because a state trooper who knows my family, not my, well, one of his nieces was involved with the university lying to the state police because they needed family backup to support their lie. And my niece gave it to them. The state trooper knows that. Captain White knew what he was looking at. In the 1990s, my daughter and I were both being threatened. She was finally killed in 2010 because she refused to leave Massachusetts. I'm alive because I live in Texas. Anyway, anyone who hears the garbage, see it pass on, notice. If it starts being passed on by certain parties, follow the networks. This cult runs fake Christian groups, fake anti crime citizen groups, fake, fake, fake. And I did just take the gloves off with the so called estuary movement that's run by the LARPing pastor Paul Vanderklay. So it doesn't surprise me that within days of my publishing a video, you can just look through the list in this channel. You can see by the titles which ones I'm talking about. I openly threw the gauntlet down to the estuary LARPers, the pseudo Christian LARPers. So it doesn't surprise me to get this email. This person saw me being mentioned and was concerned that maybe I didn't know because Schurter sells himself as a vigilante, which it takes about 5 minutes to discover he's a liar. And so I just answered, well, I'm not going to worry about it. And I'm not worried about it. It's what you have to put up with. Doesn't stop me. Now, I'm going to toot my own horn a little bit because there are too many people in the estuary movement who are innocent, who really believe they're joining some kind of interesting, intellectual, multi ecumenical Christian kind of discussion group. And they have no clue of the really evil cult that's behind it. Yes, I have been active in the anti pedophile movement. One of the things I did when I moved to Texas, I moved here with the help of somebody else who was trying to get his own child out of the hands of a drug addict mother and her drug addict friends. And I met that person when I was living and working in Kentucky. And I couldn't stand where I was in Kentucky because Kentucky has it's on the Ohio River, and there's a smog air issue. I couldn't take it. My bronchitis and my eyes were burning from the smog. So I was offered an opportunity to come to Texas as a family babysitter with the understanding that as the babysitter, so a truck driving family, all the adults in the family had contract driving. And one would be home and the other would be on the road. And the guy discovered that while he was on the road, his wife was farming their little baby, was, in the middle of drug parties with two children actually, her own and their baby. And he couldn't do anything about it. So I accepted the job to go babysit. The mother was happy to have a babysitter paid for by her husband. They needed eyes in the house. And what ultimately happened was, as it proceeded and the two were going through their divorce, he was preparing to divorce and take custody. He still had the issue of, Texas being kind of biased to the mother and all this other stuff. Things got pretty crazy. And one day, she and her drug addict friends came into the house. She had already, at that point, she had been removed from the home. They were still fighting their custody issues in court. I was babysitting in the home. She was removed. And I'm not sure, I'm still not sure how completely formal it was because I didn't get involved in any of the legal stuff. But I know that for whatever reason, she was sleeping at her girlfriend's place. Her married girlfriend and their family had said, "Oh, you poor thing, your husband's so mean." But he was arguing that the baby could stay in their own home with me. So one day he's out on the road. She and her drug addict friends came into the house with the intention of grabbing the baby and going back to the drug house. I grabbed the baby. It wasn't a little baby, a toddler. And I locked us both in the bathroom. I said, John, call the cops. I said, you go right ahead. Please do call the cops. I locked us in the bathroom. Cops came. They could see that she was high as a kite. They knew they'd been arresting. That was part of what was going on. The cops were on the father's side, but they knew the judges, the Democrats, were always on the drug addict side, especially when it was the mother. So the cops came. They saw the drug addict friends. They kicked them out of the house. They sat her down. So what's going on? They came to the door. I could hear them out there, and they yelling, "You okay in there?" "Yeah, I'm okay. Baby's okay. I'm just locked in." I locked myself in. They said, "Well, come out." So I opened the door, go out. They're talking to her. They're talking to me. Then they find out, well, the grandfather lives in town too. And I had been trying to call him during the ruckus of these people coming. I said, I don't know if he got the call went through or not because, she grabbed the phone, I grabbed the baby. And so they got hold of him. They said to her, you sit there, we got to talk to the grandfather. Grandfather shows up, actually explains to them right in front of her that he and his son were very upset about the drugs. And the cop says, "Look, I can't straighten any of this out. You all have to go to court." He said, "But you're the biological grandfather." And he said, "Yes." He says, "Well, you're the only sober one here with a family connection to this child." He takes the toddler, hands the toddler to the grandfather, and says, "Take her back to your place." And he says to the mother, "Take it all to the judge." And the cops left, and she left. And not too long after that, I left. That's one child that I count as having saved. That's not the only time I've done something like that. Now, you people want to go on with all your YouTube crap? That's the tip of the iceberg of the fruits of my service in Christ. That little girl is growing up safe, and she's not the only one. I could tell other stories, but I won't. One last rant and then I'm done. Okay, we got a busybody neighbor. This just stupid stuff. No, but it's what goes on today. Very annoying. Always crying out. She needs this. She needs that. She can't find a job. Da da da. She works in the school system. Okay, and it always bugs me when somebody who's unable to function very well is also on a public school staff, and she's always bouncing around substitute teaching and stuff like that. And we have a mouse problem. There's a cottage just out back that they tore down. And since they tore that cottage down, all the mice have come into our building. And so I got these little live catch mouse traps. I don't like to kill them. I mean, I've tried the traps that kill them, and sometimes they only trap them and halfway kill them, and then the poor thing is squeaking. And it's just, I didn't like that. So I got the live trap, and I take them out. There's a, this is a real estuary where I live, and there's a salt marsh up the road. So I take the mice up to the marsh and I release them there. And this neighbor's always going on, and she was going on about, oh, it's the landlord's fault. There's mice here. No, 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 no. I went over and I bought the a box of these things because they come in a box, so you can put one in each room of the house. Well, I only have one room, so I had an extra one. So I went over to offer it to her, and she says no, she likes to use the glue traps. I said, well, okay. And I turned to leave, and she says, but wait a minute, how much did you pay for that? I says, well, if you don't want one, why do you care? Because she's always asking people questions about money. And that's what I'm talking about. These people that gotta know all your money questions. Just idle, stupid gossip. Now she had just made it, and she made an issue of it. Why did I have to do that when the landlord was giving everybody the glue traps? And I just said, well, I don't like to use the glue traps. And she says, well, why did you buy that? How much did you pay for that? It's a little piece of plastic. It didn't cost anything. And I said, no, I said I had to buy one for myself, and they had extra in the box. That's all. It's not a lot. Why do you care? I said, look, you don't want it anyway. Why do you care how much? I wasn't even asking her to pay for it. But if you give her something, she wants to know how come you can afford to give her anything. And she won't accept it because she wants to know what you're up to. But she's always coming to you with her problems. So it's like, okay. So I said, well, why do you want to know? She says, and she gets scowly. She says, how much did you pay for that? You bought a whole box of them? And I said, they come 4 to a box. Why do you even need to know since you don't want one anyway? Because I knew why she wanted to know. She wanted to go gossip. She was all over the neighborhood with gossip because one of my neighbors had a family member visit for 2 days. She wanted to know whose car was that? Why do those people have an extra car parked out of the side of their place? Does the landlord know they're open? It's like, the landlord's on the property every day. He comes here every day. He walks the property with the maintenance man, and half the time his brother is in the office here. So I'm sure he knows if somebody has a visitor for a couple days. But she has to know. And she get upset about another neighbor. He bought a car. Where'd he get the money to buy it? It's like, the hell? You don't need a lot of money to buy a car. You got a good credit rating, get a loan. But he's not working. I said, how do you know he's not working? I don't know if he works or not. I don't care. It's none of my business. He's young enough that he must have been working. But she's got to, this is the thing. She works in the public school system. And I made a remark to a friend of mine. I said, this whole thing with the mousetrap was just so damn stupid. I said, she acts like a damn spy. And he said, oh, I'm sure she is one. And that's what's going on, these little neighborhood spies. Then if you speak up about it, it's like, well, what do you got to hide? It's like, yeah, I spent $5 on mouse traps. I got a whole hell of a lot to hide. Well, I want to tell you something. This is YouTube. The fight in the streets is real. The children are real. The idiots slandering people like me, the fake Christian discussion groups that are set up like glue traps for Christian souls. I'll continue to do live catch. Denise Matto, over and out.